Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Miles Trial. Today is day 26 of the Miles Guo trial. Just to recap, right now we are pretty much wrapping up on the government's witnesses. And today we actually are able to begin to see some of the witnesses on Miles' side. And before we do that, in today's show, we actually have to follow up and continue the one of the documents and motions issued by the government. As we discussed in yesterday's show, there's actually been decisions made on the motion that was proposed. So before we actually dive into the witnesses, we will do that. And just for the viewers out there, I just want to reiterate that the fact that in this trial, Miles Guo is facing 12 counts of financial charges and also 1 count of RICO, and he has never pled guilty, and his trial is currently taking place in the Southern District Court of New York. Now, today in this episode, I would like to invite Ava and Feder back on the show again. So, hello, thank you, Ava and Feder, for coming onto the show again. It was great to have Ava on the show yesterday just to kind of recap everything, and I think it was an episode that we needed to do because this is such a lengthy trial, right? And also, lovely Feder is also back on the show again. It's been a while since we have seen her, so welcome back, Feder.
Thank you, Saturn.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So yeah, we're very excited to start today. Although the day start with a prosecutor team finishing the questioning, the direct and cross questioning of the last witness 35 of the government, and then the defense finally was able to start its case at 12:02 right after lunch today. So we're very excited and to bring you back some of the information we've received from the floor.
Right, thank you, Ava, for the short update on the trial, and I know how exciting it must be to finally see the witnesses show up for Miles' side. And before we talk about which witnesses have showed up, I actually, just to continue off of what we had discussed for the document yesterday, that pertains to actually the defense's witnesses. Do you have an update on that prior to the court starting today?
Yes.
The trial starting.
Yeah, yes, this morning from 9 o'clock to 9:30. So the judge basically discussed it with both party counsels, and regarding the motions that both parties have put forward in written format, which we reviewed yesterday, one of them yesterday. So this morning, the judge basically read out some of both sides of arguments and then made a decision. Basically, if I heard it correctly, she basically denied every single motion that the government put forward. So that means, if you recall, if you were not here yesterday, I'm just quickly give you a sense of what are these motions that the government was seeking to preclude. So they're seeking to preclude 5 testimonies from the defense side. The first one is they want to preclude the defense having testimony from individual investors who claim not to be victims of the charged schemes. Because the government say, hey, you've already heard 6 of those so-called victims' testimonies, so you don't need, the defense should preclude all those non-victim testimonies. Okay, so that was denied. So so the 3 witnesses that the defense has will be able to testify for on behalf of this case. And the second one is the government is seeking to preclude irrelevant and unduly prejudicial testimony of defense witness 1. So this defense witness 1, as we outlined for our audience yesterday, he was the person that suffered a persecution, not only him and his family as well, like his wife, and he was requested urgently by the Chinese police, CCP's police, to basically file a false complaint on SEC website. Okay, and he actually collected a lot of receipts secretly. So he offered, when he testified, I'm sure that he would be allowed to present those evidence, including, as far as I know, reading the documents, probably including exhibits possibly even audio, I don't know. But that's something very exciting to note, that the court is basically allowed the defense to present those information. So again, this is a second motion that, second portion of the motion that was denied. And the third one is George Heikenbotham, another person that is very crucial, played a critical role in the illegal lobbying of the American government on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party, an agent of the Chinese Communist Party. And he was actually pleaded guilty back in 2018, and along with co-conspirators in that repatriation schemes, including Nicolin Davis, Press Michel, and Eloy Brody. All of them, two of them has been sentenced, to various jail terms, and Eloy Brody was also pleaded guilty, but then later on pardoned by President Trump in 2020. But he will be he will be actually testifying here as a witness for the defense. So the third request for precluding his testimony was also denied. And the fourth motion the government put forth was actually also denied as a moot point, because they are seeking to preclude a certain portion of testimony from the experts, witnesses from the defense side, which she is, as we leaving the court, she is the second witnesses today that was right now was basically being questioning right now. And so this decision coming at the right time, I guess.
Right.
So, and the last request of the government is they wanted to preclude the defense arguing about redemption for the Himalaya exchange, which it was denied. And so that means we are allowed to present the evidences of the money. So people, the users of Himalaya exchange will be able to redeem their credits, HDO credits, H-coin credits for fiat currency for a period of time. So that information is about to come for the rest of the few days, I guess. Yeah. So that's overall is the motion of the government, basically pretty much all denied.
Right, and I think with the response on this, really you get to see how quickly the court really moves to resolve these issues as they come up, some of the motions come up, just because you got to consider one of the witnesses, the testimonies that it pertains to actually was a witness today, the very next day, right, for this as a second witness for the defendant. And also, I think another thing I would like to point out in regards to this is the fact that there are 5 testimonies and there are only 11 witnesses for the defendant. So this is almost half of the defendant's witnesses, right? That it pertains to their testimonies. So I think that's also very interesting to see how the difference in the structure for their witnesses as well. And we are actually going to, I would say we're pretty much going to very soon see some of these witnesses that are being brought up in this document, right? Because we have already seen one today. There's very likely that we will also, see another one tomorrow, just because the length of the trial is extended to 5 p.m. again.
That's correct.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there's more time for the defendant to examine their witnesses, and also for the prosecution to cross-examine. So
yes.
I think you did. So again, thank you for wrapping up this part of the documents to see the court's decision on this matter. And before we do that, I did hear that in the morning before Miles's team was able to bring out their witnesses, they actually wrapped up their final witness from last week, and they also have played certain video clips.
That's correct.
Can you give us a little bit of details that pertains to that? Because if I remember, this witness we have to wrap up is a FBI agent, correct? And they're also going through a number of evidences based on the devices that they have found in some of the searches.
For sure. I just want to add one thing before I forget, because I wanted to say this morning we had the most amount of fellow fighter supporters actually waiting outside of the courtroom. So when I got in this morning around 8:30, 8:35, the line was unprecedented. So I guess that's reasonable, because people know that, because through the show people know this is the day one that the defense likely to start to present its own witnesses. So that is why more followers lined up this morning, and we got a pack full. Even the overflow went down to the 15th floor. That's the second room, and that room is almost full as I checked a little bit later, 9:20 in the morning. So so I'm expecting to see more and more people coming up in the next 2 days or so. And also another housekeeping item, one of the alternative jury was excused this morning because he was late. According to the judge was asking consult with both parties and say whether we should wait for him or not, because he basically informed the judge that he might still having an hour away from the court. So if we would wait, then we'll be delayed. Today will be delayed. So the judge basically, after speaking to both counsels, and decided to excuse this alternate judge number 4.
So it's just excused like for the rest of the trial?
Yeah, so he doesn't have to come because he missed the first hour. Like it would be, so we would not wait for him. Otherwise, then we would have to wait for him, not starting at 9:30.
This is a jury member, right?
It's alternate jury.
Alternate,
Alternate jury.
I remember I didn't see him today. I was wondering where he went.
So he was completely excused, so he will get the rest of the, I guess summer vacation kicks in earlier for him.
So that actually doesn't affect it all too much because he's an alternate and not actually a part of the main jury.
Actually, one of the arguments that the defense counsel said was actually suggesting not to. Like his concern is because we're doing the COVID. Remember that one of the jury member, her daughter, was contracted COVID, and she was instructed to put on the mask when she was sitting the jury seat. So because of the COVID-19 thing, so it was kind of a concern if right now at this stage we're gonna excuse one. What if if there's knock the wood, nobody is gonna happen, but what if there are other people need a replacement, then we would have a smaller pool to start with. Remember, because another alternate jury has already been excused at the beginning of the trial. So right now we only have 4 alternates left, right? So, but anyway, after consulting, after talking back and forth, the judge made a ruling, basically excusing this particular jury member. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then we just went to the morning. So as you said, we finished the last witness of the government, which is the witness 35, and she is the employee of the FBI, and her name is Jessica. And this morning, so basically the prosecutor, Mr. Ferguson continued his direct examination of the material. Basically, that's the same flow. It's very slow because they ask the witness to speaks to some photos and videos, audios. So it takes a long time to load. Okay, so every time you switch some format of the exhibits, it takes time. It didn't come up instantly. So we went through some of the pictures and some audios. Do you want me to go into details, like?
Is it very similar to some of the stuff we have already shown, like let's say luxury cars, some of the bank transactions, devices, electronic devices, photos of that? So
this morning, there's photos, there's audios, but a lot of them are text message, so it's very boring. So they will put on the charts and ask the witness to read. Oh, what date is this text messaging happening? Oh, this is happening on Signal. Signal is happened to be another like a WhatsApp-like communication platforms, and then who this message is from, to who, and could you they basically read out quite a bit in terms of a text messaging, but overall, they wanted to prove that Miles School did this and did that. For example, one of the extensively reviewed messages back and forth is between Miles School and his assistant Gladius. So talking about some of the modifications and constructions in Mawa mansion in terms of how the kitchen, how the rooms, how knock off this wall, make them walk through and put this, like a lot of those in back and forth. So that's very time consuming. Took lots of time this morning. Just in the big portion of the direct is back and forth text messaging, and then they do put a lot of photos. Like for example, one of the photos listing biryani invoice. So the invoice is basically say, oh, it's a bespoke order for invoice for Mr. Kwa, and then they ask the witness to read the total amount. Altogether, there's 79 items ordered. The total amount is like $719,000 ish. But when doing the cross, when the lawyer asked, do you know who are those items for? Do you know when was that? Because there was no date on the invoice, right? So they don't know whether it's made it at the same time, or whether it's just a list of a stock of everything that he ever ordered. We don't know that. So the witness doesn't know that neither. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember this witness from last Friday, and I think I talked about how she was, with the evidence that's present with her, has like a master sheet of digital evidence collected. So you have a chart where you have the date, what device, with the location, the serial number of the device, the electronic device, and et cetera, and provided a master sheet of everything they collected with the phone of the employees and the phone of Miss Wang and all that, et cetera, and now that I think of this, the last witness of the government, it actually kind of makes sense to me. Why? Because all of this, they're trying to, the last push of showing, all this evidence is connected to Miles, and all the evidence is, yes, you said there's evidence of everything, kind of. There's a photo of Lamborghini, there's audio recordings, there's protest photos, there's a wedding photo of Isabel Depin, the daughter of the Luc Depin, and then et cetera, just everything put together, trying to show all this has to do with Miles or Miles's family, where there's co-conspirators and all that connected. So that makes sense why it's the last witness of the government.
Right, and I heard because of this fact, right, like the evidence that's being shown, they're not categorized by the categories of the evidence, but rather the devices or the means that it was obtained through. So I would imagine there was a lot of jump. It was very like jumping back and forth on that front. So it might have been a little bit tricky for for everybody there to kind of follow and continue as they continue to show the evidences. That is at least what I heard and my impression of how it would look like at the courtroom. Now I also heard that they plan to show a number of videos last week. Did they play any videos at all today?
So basically, after the cross for the last witness of government ended at 11:10. So the cross only took 30 minutes.
Oh, that's
so
very
it's
short.
Compared with the direct questioning, the time that they consumed, this is very short. Okay, and then after 11:10, then another prosecutor team member, his name is Justin Horton, so took the podium and say, now we would like to play some videos. Initially, we thought it will take a long time, but it was very surprising because the video is actually I would say probably less than 4 minutes.
Oh, that's
No more than 4 minutes. It was a clip that they made because they kind of stitching 4 pieces of a different live broadcasting that Miles Guo did at a different time. I wrote down the dates, so there's a clip.
So it's 4 clips of the same broadcast, correct?
Not the same broadcast. It's 4 clips of 4 different broadcasts Miles Guo did on those various days respectively. I can speak about the dates. So January 28th, 2021, October 27th, 2021, and June 6th, 2022, and July 13th, 2022. So these are the 4 live broadcastings. Then they just pick maybe each one about like 20, maybe I would say 20 seconds all the way to maybe a minute long. They just kind of stitching all 4 of them together. But all those clips that they cut have the same theme. Okay, so they're talking about one thing, is the investment, SGC reinvestment, and you heard at the different times Miles Guo talking about he will be responsible for the loss of the fellow fighters' investment. Okay, so for example, he said, if you bought the coin at 10 cents, if you lose any money on that, I will pay you back. Like I will guarantee you will not lose money because at 10 cents, right? At 10 cents, that's the cost that what we allowed to the fellow fighters was allotted the credits to purchase, right? Because we are the private interested party that was selected, right? Because remember the credits was not open to everyone. So that's what he said. And then in other live streaming, he said, would you lose a penny? Like he would asking a question, or something is like, I will recommend you guys use Sarah Way, and if something wrong, I will be legally responsible. That's what he said. So from different various of the videos, it's basically the same theme. So the government wants to use it to show, hey, because Miles Guo said that on this 4 occasions regarding people's investments, that directly speaks to those witnesses that testified on behalf of the government, right? Remember, they all say, Miles, why I invest is because Miles Guo said,
Said this, said
said
that.
this, said that. So that's why I invest, right? So that's kind of a support what the government's argument was and is. So yeah, so that's the video. That's it.
Okay, so I think I'm getting the picture that, the videos they're showing, they're just pieced together clips that pretty much kind of summarizes everything, kind of like The Last Witness, right? Because they kind of threw in a lot of evidence.
That's right.
And this one, is just to kind of wrap it up in the clippings
Correct.
of Miles.
Yeah.
Do the clippings of Miles.
So this way it's very selective, because we have been saying that they're very selective in terms of what they want
Right.
to show to the jury and to the in the court, to the judge, because we know, because I can literally, in less than probably an hour, I can put a clip of videos that Miles Guo said no less than 10 occasions, and telling you that every investment is risky and you need to making sure you do your work, right? So if I want to tell my story one-sided, I would do that. And that's very easy for me to do. So that is why just saying that this is a very selective way of presenting an information, and it certainly is not the entire information that I think the jury needs to consider on for deliberation. So that is why the defense finally took the floor after Justin Houghton, the prosecutor, announced after the video say the United States now rests its case. And then we're very excited to hear, what's going to happen next. So it happened to be sidebar right away. So after he announced that the government is basically rests its case, and then the judge called a sidebar, and that leads to the break right away. So and which is a good break. We kind of need a refresh, kind of need a stretch or something before we actually come in and clean our emotions and minds for the
Right.
defense arguments. Yeah.
Because you can kind of imagine seeing some of the members of the NFSC at the scene and supporters of the movement. Like it would be pretty emotional after watching the trial for such an extended number of days, for 20-something days, right?
Yeah.
And to finally see the defense's witnesses begin to take their appearance in court, I think that would be emotional to a lot of people, to say the least. Just to see some of the arguments they're going to bring to this case.
Absolutely.
And why it is also great to have a little bit of time for them to recollect themselves and kind of just start fresh,
Correct.
from after the break.
And from seeing Miles Guo this morning, I think Miles Guo is also very emotional, because this morning when we first walk in, he already there. Like he stood up and facing at the entrance, and then basically he's saying thank you to everybody walk in. Although he can't say it, we can't hear it because it's very far, but he's showing, he puts his fist on his heart, and he's nodding heads as every single fellow fighter walks into the room. So I think he's ready. I think he's finally waiting, because he has been waiting for this moment for so long, and I can see that emotion coming out of him as well.
Right, and to put it into even better perspective, I think right now the government is done making their arguments through their witnesses. It's the defense's turn to make the arguments. So that's why it's such a very crucial day and very special day for Miles. And you can see why he's so energetic to get to his witnesses. So I think before we actually jump to the witness, I just wanted to take a moment to let the audience know, if you guys are interested in finding out more about the Miles Guo trial, you guys can visit our Twitter, our X account at NFSC Speak, and also on Getter at NFSC Speaks. We will be doing live updates for the trial on these 2 accounts. And we will also be having this show here at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, if you guys are interested to read a little bit more about the trial and also the court documents related to the trial, you guys can actually go on our official website at nfscofficial.com. We will be uploading these documents and also the transcripts for the trial as soon as they are uploaded onto the docket. And you guys will be able to get the most up-to-date and most prompt information from us through these different channels. So now let's get back to the witnesses. I think we're all very excited to hear about what kind of witnesses Miles's defense team has prepared. So who is the first witness that has appeared for the defense's side?
Do you want to go ahead?
Sure, I can start introducing a little bit. So the first witness presented by the defense team, Miles' legal team, it's his name is Raymond Dragon, and he's an expert witness, and he works in the financial of evaluation. He has those skills, evaluation skills. Work in the financial field for 25 years. He has master. And an MBA and Master in Economics in the University of London. He now works at is it an accounting firm in New York City for 8 years, right? Yeah, and he's a head of evaluation service, and he worked in the international bank for acquisition service, international trading, ventures. He has a lot of certifications, so he has all this background, all this knowledge that allowed him to give a testimony from an expert perspective. All this question asked by Mr. Shurik, our defense lawyer, is to prepare, say, oh, this is the witness that we offer as an expert in evaluation, in business evaluation, and then followed by testify for the evaluation of GTV in April 20th of 2020. This is the main testimony it's on about that the private placement of GTV at that period of time.
So it sounds like this is one of the expert witnesses that the defense team has prepared, correct?
Yes.
Oh, and I think this is a familiar name too for us who have been following some of the court documents.
Yeah.
This is should be a very familiar name by now. So what did he testify to in his testimony? Because I think you said he's an evaluation, right? I think according to some of the older court documents, he should be evaluating the value of the GTV stocks, correct? Is that what he testified to in the court?
That's correct, yeah. So basically, it's going to be precise because his evaluation only limited to the GTV value in time, in April 2020.
Oh, so only exclusive to a specific time.
Very, very exclusive, because we know GTV 2020, there is a private replacement memorandum, right? And then we successfully raised money. So he was only asked, his service was only purchased and asked for evaluation at that time, specific time frame. So he basically, his testify is regarding that. So the direct is, basically was done by our, is it Scott?
Yes,
yeah, it's Scott. Yeah. So it was done by the defense lawyer Scott. So they started with, as Feather introduced a little bit, like establishing his expertise and knowledge and experience in terms of the business evaluation. And then they get down to, in terms of his compensation, I think it's just for transparency, they declare this right out of the get-go. So the defense, Scott basically asked him, so how would you compensate it? How much were you billing, and what's your connection with this GTV case? So basically he did not come to work for any of people, including Scott, including any members of prosecution team, and sorry, not prosecution, defense team, the defense team, and also Miles School. He never worked with them before, so this is the first time, first project that he was asked to work as
Just for
a
this case only,
yeah, for this case only, as his company. His company is called Ancient Block LLP. It's a accounting consultant firm. So his firm is billing for him as the person that retained on this case is $6.95 per hour, $695 per hour.
Wow.
That's bill at hourly rate. And so when asked how much total billing so far that has occurred, and his answer is $68,200.
Oh, wow.
$68,200 so far in total billing. And so the defense even get down to the nitty gritty in terms of a reimbursement, because this is not all, because plus the reimbursement for travel, like for expenses such as driving, time mileage, And he said, yes, the mileage is also compensated at 67 cents per mile. And parked my car for $30, and the toll, because you probably have to drive through the bridges, and the toll is $17.33. And so very, 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 very precise, I guess,
Yes.
you know.
Because he's an accountant.
I know. So I was like writing down, I was laughing, I was smiling, I was like, oh, this is precise. And then one of the question is asked is very important, I think. So Scott said, is your compensation, is what you just said, the dollar amount, is dependent on the outcome of your testimony? No, it's not. And then is this compensation above mentioned dependent on how you're going to testify, whether you testify on, in this case, in a certain way? No, it does not. So these are cleared out as outright question. And then they move on to talk about the most important documents. So there's a question asking, what document did you actually reviewed for preparing for the evaluation that you did? Then this expert witness, Mr. Dragon, so he said, I reviewed the April 2020 PPM and evaluation from other consultants, because remember we had other evaluation in terms of the value, dollar value for GTV in 2020 December. And the third piece of documents he reviewed, he said the company forecast, so basically GTV's forecast, and also he reviewed consultant forecast, so other consultants forecast. So this time there's objections. So he was continuing talking about the document that he has reviewed in order to prepare for this testimony, prepare for his evaluation of the GTV in April 2020, but it was stopped. So I can tell you for his less than hour testimony in direct, there was actually over a dozen of objections by the government.
Yeah.
And how long, can you just say it again, how long was the direct examination?
Less than an hour, 58
minutes.
I read it, it's 30 minutes.
So it started from 12:02 and it finished at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Oh wow,
So
so
it's
relatively
58.
short.
Yeah, 58 minutes.
Oh,
And then the government its cross. So it's very short.
Now there's 12 objections you said, and how many sidebars?
It's actually more than
More than
12. More than 12.
Oh, wow.
I
And
might
because some
have
of
a
them
number.
are actually continuously. So one objection, and as soon as our defense lawyer starts talking, that objection, like it's very, very lots of objections. So at least I counted what I wrote, it's already 12. So I think I missed a few of them just because they spit it out in a row. It was too fast. So, and there's quite, let me count the sidebar.
Oh, so there are a number of sidebars
Oh,
as well.
yeah, there is quite a bit. There's
1, 2,
4 sidebars I recorded.
Yes.
Okay,
4.
just for that 58 minutes. Okay, so there's a lot of objections from the government. So I can see it's very difficult for Scott because one of the questions I think was repeated. It was like numerous, at least consumed, I would say, 3 or 4 objections and sidebars, and even lingering around when they came back from the sidebar and then they didn't finish. Then very soon they went to the sidebar again. I think it was the same issue that was not got resolved thoroughly. So, but. Do you want to add to the question? Do you want to start talking about questions?
The question asked
Or you wanted
by
me to continue?
Scott.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was introduced his way of evaluating, doing the evaluation analysis of GTV from the expert point of view. So his method using. The method he used is called back-solve method. It's to look at the value of a company by focusing at the transactions, the transaction amounts, and the number of investors investing in.
Yeah. In this case,
In
it's
this
the
case.
sell of the stocks.
Yes, the sale of stock and the fundraising. That's the focus, right? So basically, he explained what is this method is and how he used this method to evaluate this private placement of GTV and the value of GTV. And so, we go through the document, the exhibit, the GTV private placement memorandum, the PPM. So it's very, very common for a company to offer such documents. That's one thing he said. Why it is common to offer such document, he said, is to raise the capital. So the sum of the sum of the
total investment?
Total investment money, the amount of the fund, and to expand the business. Okay.
I'm gonna adding some.
Something. Okay.
I'm gonna adding some. So prior to this conversation that you mentioned, there's a few questions about evaluation. So first of all, the methodology. So as you explained,
Yes.
the backsolve method, and then a few questions is why evaluation analysis? Why do you do evaluation analysis? So and the experts kind of answered in a way, say, in order to determine the valuation for the company for stock or portion of the stock for various purpose, particularly this is applied to particularly in this case, it's not a public traded company. So that's why they do evaluation analysis. And then the other question is why a evaluation service be performed in this particular cases. Then so this experts tapped into his expertise area and gave us an answer for what are the commonly seen scenarios that require evaluation services. Okay, so he named 5 of them, and the first one is he gave it an example. Say if you have 3 partners, one of them retire. Okay, so one wanted to sell to the other 2 partners. So this time you need a evaluation about the stock price so they can sell it to the partners. So this is one of the scenario and very common. And the second one, and he mentioned about estate gift tax purpose. So if you have a kids or if you whatever you want to gift, say 25% of your company to your children. So then you would have to, for tax calculation purpose, that you would need to know the evaluation of the 25% of the equity that you just gifted. So that's a scenario number 2. The third scenario is financial reporting. So he mentioned about the GAAP principles, so generally accepted accounting practices. So, in order to arrive as a fair value of something, could be a company stock, could be a property, then you need a fair value evaluation. So that's the third financial reporting. The fourth scenario is divorce. So he said if in divorce under the marital law, company is usually the most important assets. It comes to questions. You need to properly determine the dollar value, and also in alimony purpose, for determining the alimony purpose, you need to know the income of the company, because a percentage of that income goes to the spouse, right? So that's the fourth scenario. The fifth, the last scenario, he said, will be this one, litigation. So dispute over a dollar evaluation of a company. So this is why people need evaluation services, basically. So he gave out that answer. And then and then comes to what Feather just mentioned about fundraising. Does evaluation, because he didn't mention about fundraising private placement. So Scott asked a further question. He said, does the evaluation service applicable to fundraising, for private placement? And he said, definitely yes, fundraising, people who raise capital for a company needs to know how to offer, to offer, right?
The price to sell at.
Exactly, the initial private offering.
Right.
So this scenario does apply, and then they talk about the acronyms of the PPM. So PPM is common, as you said. Yeah, PPM is common. There's another name also used interchangeably with PPM. It's called CIA, Confidential Information Memo, CIM. CIM. And he said yes. Although PPM is more frequently used, private placement memorandum, the CIM is also used, but it's less frequently. That's his answer. And then, do you want to continue to the point?
Sure. I left that after, why is it common to offer? I said about raise the capital, expand the business, and then we went into the document we go through the confidentiality and disclaimer. Let me see here. So the confidentiality and disclaimer talked about the risk factors, or is it the
it talks about this company is intended for selected parties.
Right.
Talks about GTV is a newly formed company.
Yes.
And it intends to offer the stock offerings to do to establish the things in the future, because it's a very futuristic wording.
Yeah.
And it's also talk about there's no guarantee that the funds raised will be put into the use as described, and also no guarantee that it will be a successful venture. Okay, so that was the language that we reviewed and under the confidentiality and disclaimer. And then, so basically the witness saying, yeah, it's a startup company. So GTV, strictly speaking, it's a new company, it's a startup company, and usually startup company has a business plan, and they put together a management team. So the witness described what the startup company looks like, and this is exactly just what this paragraph is talking about, right? And yeah.
Right, and then this is I think this is where the main argument about this is, because when he was asked, so when you have a startup company, does it prevent the business evaluation being done? So usually you think about all the examples given by why it would be doing this evaluation, business evaluation. You would be thinking of the business has been already
been established for a long time. It's established and developed for quite some time.
Yeah, so they have a record to do the analysis of from the record of the company. But then this is a startup company. So, but then the expert witness said that doesn't prevent the business evaluation being done. So you can still do the evaluation with a startup company. Why? It's because for a lot of group of people, other investments to come invest in this company. So this is the case when you want to have a business evaluation being done for other people to invest in your company, right?
And actually, prior to this question, there is another question which established the logic link. So the defense counsel asked another question. The defense counsel said, "Is it unusual to seek capital at this juncture?" So as a start company, just starting, you don't have anything, you just have a business plan. You might have number one or number two employee at a in-house. So that's why Scott asked, is it unusual to start raising capital at this stage? And then his answer is, he said, no, it is not unusual at all. And it's typical. It's typical. And that's where it ties to the question, say, evaluation. But there is another question that say, what do you look into evaluation for a startup? So when you're looking at a startup company, how do you do evaluation? So this experts gave a quick summary and says, I look at the size of market, I look at potential customer, I look at the products and services of the company and potential interests, the market interest, potential market interest in this product and services, and also I'm looking at a growth and opportunities. So these are the information that he needs to take into consideration when he looking at an evaluation for a startup company.
Right, and it also describes, I think, in very good, in very complete sense on how it could be done for a startup company, because as Fedor have mentioned, there might not be as much data for them to evaluate. But it seems to me that there's also a lot of factors involved. Just judging from the market and interest as well. I think it can absolutely give the full picture about how much a company is worth, and it also speaks to why raising capital is very common, because at the end of the day you have to pay salaries to your employees, right? As you're trying to expand. So that is something that at least in my opinion, that would be the logic to why the capital and an evaluation would be able to be done, just because it's a business. There has to be a flow of money, and also flow of interest, and also a flow of a flow of a value. Value of the company.
Yeah, because when he talk about those elements of how he evaluate, what goes into his equation of evaluation, right? Size of market.
Right.
I mean, GTV specifically said later on in the PPN, they're full bullets, right? It's 1.3 goals. It said it's a market of 1.4 billion Chinese. Right? And customers, these are Chinese people and diasporas, millions of Chinese diaspora living across the world, okay? So and look at the product services, it tell us it's actually gonna create news-focused and unique social media that revealing the truth about China. That's the product it's creating, and the other is building an online business and trading platform free of control of the CCP for 1.4 billion Chinese people for their personal and business transaction. And it will be the safest platform to advocate for truth, freedom of speech and religion and justice, human rights and democracy in China. And it will serve as a bridge between China and the rest of the Western world, allowing for free and open communication, business transactions and trading uncensored by the Chinese government. So this is the service and products the GTV are actually planning providing. Okay, talk about potential. You know,
Right.
talk about potential. This is why it has so much potential. That's why it raised successfully,
Yeah.
overwhelmingly, exceeding expectation, right?
So yeah.
Yeah, because think about the flip side of it, right? About the CCP censorship. Think about
Yeah.
how strong the CCP censorship
Exactly.
really is. And then you can begin to get a
Yeah.
picture about why it's so, the products that GTV provides is so
Exactly.
critical.
People want to voice their opinion, but right now they're nailed down and basically covered. Their ears, their eyes, their mouths are covered by the Chinese Communist Party. It's a dictatorship. So this is why, back to your question, I want to add an answer. Because the question is, a startup does not usually have a history. So how does it preventing you do a business evaluation? So that's a question, right? You just raised. The answer is awesome. He actually said, no, there is a whole industry actually do this, because he said, the witness said, the venture capital lists is looking for those opportunity for startup, right? So remember all those spies, the CCP spies, Nailshin, Sequoia. This is basically what they do. They're offering the very early seed money, Series A, Series B for those startup company because they want to create the CCP's network, infiltrating the free Western world from the beginning. That is why they have been, so that's why the CCP money has flooded the market, you know, the capital market, the venture capital market. So this is reason why, because there's a whole industry behind it. People looking for exciting startup opportunity, and GTV is definitely one of the top. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, further, and I know you had something you wanted to share as well.
Just something to add to it. You see, this is the passage that we talk about, the bullet points of the goals of the GTV which was in the document of the PPM, and this is what's being taken consideration of when he does the evaluation, right? But the thing is, for some, he cannot explain how it has an impact on his consideration, on
Correct.
his evaluation.
Yeah,
I think it's because the language, when he was asked, does this language of the passage impact your evaluation? And he could not explain how the language, because he's not an expert at language, right? He's an expert at business evaluation.
Correct.
So this is where the most objections are at when he was asked a specific, how does this passage, how does this part of the subject has an impact on your evaluation?
correct.
But
Yeah,
he cannot explain because it was the court's ruling.
that's right.
Yes. And the next one comes to 2.1, plan to allow Chinese people to communicate freely with the West world. Also, he was asked, does this have an impact on your evaluation for this business, for this company? Can't explain. Sidebar. Next one, 3, propose the transaction. It was asked about the before and after the private placement of shares. He explained
Share structure comparison. Yeah,
yes,
there's
so
charts
you have
on
the
the screen.
pre-money evaluation, you have the post-money evaluation. So he explained. So basically, he explained before the estimate. Was it the estimate between 20 million to 200 million shares? So
Yeah.
this is the 10% of the company. The 90%. So when he was asked, who owns the remain of the shares? 10% it's the investors, and who owns the 90%? It's owned by Saraka. And it was asked, so what's the difference between the before and after the private placement of shares? Let's say before the fundraising, right? You have $5 million in the fund to.
This is just the example.
The example,
that he gave.
the example. So for example, you have 5 million already, and then you raised 1 million in total. And the post-money valuation, after the private placement share, the estimate is about 6 million. So this is like an example. But in this case, there's 10% of the company. It's already 200 million shares. That was raised at that time. right?
So this is how he arrived at the 2 billion because so the share structure after the placement, a private placement is done. So 90% of GTV is owned by Soraka, and then 10% is basically was sold, basically raised $200 million for this private replacement. So 10% of 200 million. So if you divided 200 million by 0.1, then you arrive at 2 billion.
2 billion. And then they comes to the summary of the investment terms. So 200 million sold. 200 million being raised. This is during the fundraising, and then we he was just to testify about the subject, the title of that passage. He cannot say anything regarding to the content of that, what's being said in that passage. Only the heading, the heading of the. And then 9 is risk factor. When he talks about risks, it's really important, right? So there's like a 1 page or 2 talking about risk factors, and he only testified that he considered the language, he considered what's being said in the risk factor in the part of his evaluation, but he cannot further testify more about what's actually being said in the risk factor. General subject matter, that's what he can testify for. So the next one, company's management has brought discretion. And then we move on to the GTV private placement. Was it the? Let me see here.
So basically, this is where the most contentious sidebar happened and objections happened. The reason why is, as you recall, we maybe one day we will have the documents for you to see it, because without seeing it, it's hard to imagine. Yeah. So it is a 29-page document. It's called Private Replacement Memorandum. So under this document, there's a lot of headings. Okay, so for example, one of the heading is goals. What I just read, all the service and products, these are under the goals. And the other heading is plan to allow Chinese people to communicate freely with the Western world. That's another heading. And then it has subheadings. And then the other heading is risk factors, right? Yes. Just as Feather just shared with you. But the judge, after the sidebars, after arguments from both sides, and the judge determined that our defense counsel can only touch the headings. He is not able to and prevented from asking any questions related to the subheadings. Okay, so this is where I find the Scott has difficulties, because he's trying to elicit some of the subheading, which is very crucial information about risk factors. For example, it says, it's not guaranteed. Investment, whether you lose money, it's not guaranteed. And the other, they're bolded actually in the subheadings. And the other one is say the company is not planned to distribute dividends for foreseeable future. These are bold items. But he wants to ask questions regarding this, but it was barred. So it was objection, 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 and then sustain, 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 and sidebar happened quite frequently in that portion of the direct question. So then he decided to forget about it,
So he just moved on from
he just moved on, because there's quite a bit of important information, but it wasn't out a lot. Yeah. So then he said, okay, let's go to the page 25th, and mentioning as he trying to mentioning some of the bullet points under the passage. Then again, it was objection and sidebar. So at the end, I think. At the end, he just kind of summarized it in terms of what the message, why the message you used was valid, and then he said it was the best methodology, looking at the demand of the security for this GTV. $200 million was raised at $1 per share, and it sold 10% as they planned, because initially they only planned to sell 20 million to 200 million. So the upper hand, the limits is 200 million, but they actually sold out the 200 million. Not only that, they exceeding that. Remember, they actually raised altogether close to almost 500 million, 480 million, right? That's where the Miles School mentioned, this is exceeding the expectations. So after consult my lawyer and my financial experts, the GTV seems like it's undervalued. Instead of a 2 billion, it'd probably be 10 billion. That was on June 2nd, 2020, right? So, but this was not indirect. So under the cross, the defense did brought that broadcasting, as I mentioned, June 2nd, 2020, and say, hey, Mr. Dragon, you testified 2 billion, but are you offering any opinions on whether the GTV is worth 10 billion? And he said no, because his task is not asked to do the evaluation in June. Right? And company changes all the time. He said, I only collecting information, do an evaluation based in April 2020. And when you mentioned June, no, I didn't. And I would need a lot of additional information to be able to give you an evaluation, whether I can opine on that or not.
Right, because he has already mentioned a lot of factors you would need to evaluate. So
That's
all
right.
those factors could have changed by then.
But you would, go ahead.
And the government pull out the video or the transcript of like other evidence of Miles talk about the GTV shares in 2021 that's goes up to 60 billion, and also in 2021 August 2021 about the value of GTV equals to 48 billion, and then how and also the value of G Fashion in 2020 in July 2020. And this is all after the closing date of the GTV private placement. But then this has nothing to do with the evaluation that this witness did for GTV. So the only time frame he did the evaluation for was let me see here. Only April 2020.
Yeah.
So this is this little window that opened for private placement to come in is this time period, and he only did evaluation and estimated value at that time. A lot of questions regarding G Fashion, the other GTVs.
Himalaya Exchange.
Himalaya Exchange too, and the GTV shares and after April 2020. That's not something he considered. It's a question he never considered in terms of the value of the company, because the value of the company changed with time. So he cannot give that
That's
answer.
right.
What happened after?
But the prosecutor team, the lawyer Ferguson, just did not want to quit. He's beating the dead horse again and again and asking questions that he already clearly said, I have no information and I was not asked to do that. It was out of scope of my work. But again, he's just trying. It was, of course, it's a failed attempt, but there's a very critical piece of information I want to share with you before we ending this show today, because this witness did mention about, I consider something, it's a weight. Okay, when he evaluated this evaluation and how accurate this evaluation would be, he mentioned about three prompts. It's very important to consider. He said, if the first one is the number of shares sold. He said, if I'm evaluating, if only altogether one share sold to one party, then it wouldn't be much value. But here it's 200 million shares sold. It's a very significant. Okay, so that's a factor one. Factor two, it's significant dollar amount. So if you offered the stock at a penny a share, okay, if you sold 200 million, then it's only 2 million. The total investment amount is only 2 million, so it's not a significant. But in this case, again, it's $1 a share. So 200 million would be $200 million, US dollars, and it's significant. Okay, so the third factor is the number of investors. If the investors say it's only 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, right, it will be less significant. But in this particular cases, lots of people are interested in investing, and they did their own research independently, and they all come to a conclusion thinking this is a good investment. In this case, there's a 5,000 plus investors, and this is significant.
And the successful fundraising for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that is the key word, is successful fundraising.
Yes.
in this regard. And I do know, we're running out of time, but it's actually, I think it's okay, because right now, even as we are doing the show, the trial is still ongoing, right?
Yeah.
And just to give the audience a general overview, the next witness is also an expert witness from what I know. And this time it's a little bit different as opposed to GTV, expert on GTV and the evaluation. This time I believe it's on cryptocurrencies and also the blockchain technology. And did they actually get into too much about the testimonies? Yeah, okay.
It still established the background experience of this expert witness.
I see.
And then they called into a sidebar at 2 o'clock, and by the time that we left at 2:30, they're still in sidebar. So the sidebar sounds like it's very, very lengthy. You know, there's lots to talk about, so we don't know what the outcome of the sidebar
Yeah,
and what the issue is. So we will check the transcript tonight. So
It was called right after our defense lawyer offered witness as an expert in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Then there's the sidebar.
But this witness is really awesome witness because from her background and her working experience, it's probably the top-notch expert on crypto. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing her
And I
testimony.
think, you know, this is also the witness that was mentioned in the court document that we had just discussed in the beginning of the show. So I think I'm very excited to see some of the
That's right.
arguments that the witnesses is going to present
For sure.
for the trial. Now, with that being said, you know, thank you Ava and Frederick for coming onto the show and giving us such a great rundown of today's trial. And I do know that every time we talk about finances, it's going to get a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult. And I thank you guys for making it very digestible for the audience and very easy for them to understand. With that being said, I also want to thank each and every one of our viewers today. I noticed that we had a lot more viewers than usual. So I do thank you guys for coming on and tuning in to this episode. And we will see you guys tomorrow at 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, if you guys do wish to learn a little bit more about this trial, you guys can feel free to head to our official website at nfscofficial.com for the transcripts that we will be uploading for today's trial. Thank you guys for watching. God bless.